Today, we're looking at a turquoise ink by Blackstone Blue Cypress. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, there's timestamps down below so that if you're only interested in certain parts, you can skip around. But if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram. And if you're new here and like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put it into this Pierre Cardin President with a medium nib to take my notes for this video, and I wrote with it for a day. In order to have some standardization in my writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 20 seconds to dry. Now, the scrubby for the extra fine is showing some color variation, although we're not getting it. The medium shows none, and we get none. Tomoe River. With no bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, coming in at 20 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 34 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and there is none. And Rhodia, with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 15 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 24 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show no color variation, and we're not getting any. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see a very light minty green at the bottom. It comes up and we see a nice dark green that comes along, and then a very dark purple across the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And the only difference I'm really seeing in this is the minty green at the bottom looks a bit darker. But I'm not expecting resistance here. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's a lot of spread, there's a lot of feathering, but it is completely readable. So that makes it usable in a note-taking situation if I wanted to go back and highlight, although I might not use it. Now, water is reactivating and lifting all the darkest tones. We're leaving it in a very light version in its place. The pen flush does everything that water does and just a little bit more. You start to see the white of the paper coming through there. It only took water for me to get this out of my pen, though, just to be clear. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the paper, but I didn't need it. I test the viscosity or flow using a tilt test, which I'm going to link the video showing how I do that. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Blackstone's Blue Cypress has a viscosity of 2.02, making this a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Blackstone's Blue Cypress has an average dry time of 21 seconds, so despite it being wet, its dry time is normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Blackstone's Blue Cypress, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I went for a nice gray because I wanted a neutral tone that's not going to draw attention away from this. I chose Private Reserve's Gray Flannel. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, Apica CD, and black and red notebooks. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia paper. We're not looking for performance, more a tone change that might occur. I was kind of wondering if this very turquoise would turn more green for having the yellow background, and it really doesn't. It has no effect on it, meaning this is a very opaque ink. The only spot we see tone change really is in the smear. A little blue looking in the white paper, more green looking with the yellow. Apica CD notebooks. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than a stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 9 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 14 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both are showing us no color variation, and we don't get it. And black and red notebooks with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade, 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're not getting any, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Blackstone's Blue Cypress? This is a slightly darker green leaning turquoise that I might even call a teal, although I do typically lump them into the same kind of category. It performs very well. It doesn't give a ton of color variation. It gives some tone variation depending on the pen. But despite the colors being how they are, I do find it very pleasant to look at on the page, and it's not your normal turquoise, which is awesome in the sea of turquoise that exists. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? I didn't care for how it looked from a wet broad, but from a medium or dry broad, I found the tone to be absolutely spot on. If you've enjoyed this video, remember, I like thumbs up, you like thumbs up, everybody likes thumbs up. Unless you didn't like it, then give me the thumbs down. Both are good. Thanks for watching.